So thank you for joining us today. My name is Susan Clayton, and I have Anne-Marie Franco with us to present for Community Collaborations, which is a new system of communication and community education with Visiting Nurse Service of New York. We look forward to bringing you many webinars and educational presentations to you throughout the year. So please look for emails on upcoming events.
Okay. And that's us. Hello, I am Anne-Marie Franco, and you just heard from Susan Clayton Meyer. We both work with Visiting Nurse Service of New York. And we are happy to be with you today and bring you this presentation. Okay, we have some programs that we run, the program Encouraging Active Rewarding Lives and our Manhattan and Bronx Geriatric Outreach Program. And those are three community mental health service programs that we provide free services to older adults in the community. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about happiness. That is our topic. I wanted to mention something that might be a little bit corny, but it was actually ironic. I was running out this morning, was a little bit annoyed and stressed because I had stuff going on, and I was running out to get some coffee because coffee makes me happy. I get in my car and I turn it on, and the song "Don't Worry, Be Happy" is on. So I couldn't help to, it brought a smile to my face, and I couldn't help to laugh, and that kind of put me in a better mood. So sort of what we're going to be talking about today is these little things that do make a big difference, and maybe a lot of these little positive good things are being missed because of the environment that we have been in for the past year, over a year. So we'll be talking about that today. What does happiness mean for you? We all have different meanings of what happiness is for us, and some of us may have some misconceptions, and maybe you'll learn something today that will enlighten you a bit, and maybe have you think of different ways of what happiness is. We'll be talking about factors impacting happiness, both negative and positive, and other ways of exploring what we can do to maintain, create happiness, or even recreate, because again, I'm going to be emphasizing this a lot, that a lot has been lost during the last year, and many of us may feel, myself included, that the happiness was kind of taken away because a lot of bad stuff has happened. So when I was speaking to some friends about doing a presentation on happiness, some of them said, "Oh, well, you're very brave to do that because everything is so bad." And I said, well, I think that's the point of it, because that happiness and that positivity was lost. Even though it's still there, we're not really seeing it because it could be clouded by the pandemic and other things that are going on in the environment. So we felt that that is exactly the point, to talk about happiness if it has been lost for us. So I think, are we on our first poll?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
I will
So
launch it right now.
we're going to be doing some polls to have this a little bit more interactive and fun. So Susan, I guess you can go ahead and read
So
it
I
out.
just launched it. Please see on your screen, what is considered the happiest color? It's just kind of a fun question. We're still getting some answers, so I'm going to give it a few more moments. Okay, we've got about 80% who have voted. So I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. And I'm going to share the results.
Okay, what do we have?
Wow, looks like we got a winner. Yellow at 47%, pink just following at 29%, green at 18%, which I love green, I will say, and blue at 6%. So Anne-Marie, what is the real answer?
Okay, so those who chose yellow are correct. There's been a lot of scientific research that yellow is widely recognized around the world as the happiest color. And they look at this as because of this, the sun. The sun lifts our mood. And for those of you who don't know, well, I'm sure everyone knows that the sun is a natural mood lifter. It helps us to lift our mood. So that's one of the reasons. And also another reason is that most people, when surveyed, they picked out yellow because that stands out the most. And when they did further studies on this, it showed that people had happy memories from looking at the color yellow. So yellow, the research has shown that yellow is the happiest color in the world. So let's move on. Okay, if I can. All right, so what is happiness and where do we find it? This is something you can type into the chat if you like. This is just a.
If you have any ideas that you want to share in terms of what you think happiness is and where you find it maybe day to day, go ahead and put it in the chat. And but then also Anne-Marie's going to share a little bit more information about the science behind what it is and where we find it. And as we get some chats, I will let her know and we'll read them out. You want to go to the next slide or?
Okay, so no one.
Not yet. We'll get to it.
Okay.
Go.
All right. So so many people may look for happiness, and that could be sort of the misconception feeling that, well, in order to be happy, I have to be happy all the time. And if we're doing that and we're holding on too tight, we may be putting pressure on ourselves because we're not happy all the time. And that within itself can make us feel unhappy. And we're going to show a video in a couple of moments talking about that exact thing. Okay, so what is happiness? So there we have three definitions here. It's a feeling of pleasure, positivity, where we feel good about something, we're proud, we're excited, we're relieved or satisfied about something, and that person is said to be happy. Another is a mental state of well-being characterized by positive emotions, ranging from contentment to intense joy to good fortune. So most times that doesn't last, that intense joy doesn't last very long. So that could be where there's a misconception, well, being happy all the time. So we may not feel that intense joy all the time, but there's other things in our lives that are good and we're happy about. We're not feeling that intense joy at the moment. So the video we're going to show you is from Dr. Russ Harris. So he has a different idea about this. He says living a rich, full, meaningful life is happiness. So feeling the full range of human emotions. So it could be frustration, it could be anxiety, it could be sadness. Going through all of that and feeling all of that is happiness because you're getting the full, as he said, range of emotions, and you're experiencing everything about what's going on in your life.
While you get that video going, I will share what's in the chat.
Okay.
So Cynthia J, thank you for sharing. Happiness is appreciating. Excellent. And then Barbara Levitt, thank you. Sometimes something makes me happy at one time and doesn't at another time. Right. Timing can be important. Thank you for sharing. Those are wonderful.
Okay. When we do something that makes us happy, we want to do more of it. So, happiness, going to the next slide, is within you. So it's your actions of what you feel is going to make you happy, and you pursuing something that's going to make you happy. So it's within you. There might be outside things, but you're the one in control of doing those things, pursuing those things, getting involved in those things that are making you happy. And sometimes we have trouble doing so because we have other things going on.
So we have a few more. Monica C is right there with you. You find happiness from within. Ruth Connor, happiness is gratitude. Magda, hold on, let me just scroll down. Happiness is the feeling of joy and contentment. I'm happy when I hear a child's laughter or being outdoors in the sun and around family members. We can't be happy all the time, but when you feel it, it is what it is. And Betsy Smith, sense of security. Yeah, security can just give us that contentment and that happiness that we need. Excellent. These are great. Oh, that's good sharing. This is, they really know what they're talking about.
I love the involvement. I love it. So yeah, and it's not, many people say it's not how much we have, but how much we enjoy that makes us happy. So it could be something small that we get a lot of enjoyment out of. So again, it's within you. The Dalai Lama says happiness is not already made. It comes from your own actions. Okay, so now I'm going to switch over to a video. Just bear with me a moment while I stop this share and I share the other video with you. It's about a 4-minute video.
Popular ideas about happiness will make you miserable if you actually hold on to them too tightly, believe them too much, or let them dictate how you live your life. And there are 3 big happiness myths in particular that create this happiness trap. The first is the idea that happiness is the natural state for human beings. You know, if you give human beings food, water, shelter, and loving relationships, they're just gonna naturally be happy. You've probably heard this myth in many, many forms. The reality is that the normal state for a human being is an ever-changing flow of emotions. Emotions are like the weather, continually changing. You wouldn't say the natural state for the weather is a warm spring, sunny afternoon. It's natural in winter that it's going to be colder. In summer, it's going to be hotter. And so it is with our emotions. You expect to feel anxious in challenging situations with an uncertain outcome. You expect to feel fear when there's danger or threat present. Now, the second big happiness myth links to the first one, the idea that happiness means feeling good. If you look at most dictionary definitions of happiness, it's described as a state of pleasure or a state of contentment. Well, if this is your notion of happiness, then there's no such thing as lasting happiness. Because how long does a good feeling last? Think of the happiest day of your life. How long did a state of pleasure or contentment last before there was some frustration, disappointment, anxiety, irritation? If I were to define the word happiness, I would describe it as living a rich, full, and meaningful life in which we feel the full range of human emotions. The things that make life rich, full, and meaningful don't just give us pleasant feelings. Like, think about building loving relationships. Think about people that you love and care about and you spend a long time with. Do you have a relationship like that in your life that only gives rise to pleasant feelings? When relationships are going well, there's often wonderful feelings of love and joy, but all relationships come with tension and conflict and difficulty. If you're a parent, if you have children, then you know that having kids brings a huge amount of meaning and purpose and fulfillment into your life. But what other feelings does it give you? Now, when I ask this question to audiences at my public workshop, there's a big laugh, and then parents start calling out anxiety, guilt, frustration, anger, rage. You know, it's like amazing how these people that we love so much can arouse such strong, painful emotions in us. So this holds true for really any meaningful life project, from building a career, from looking after your body, from building a family. The things that make life rich, full, and meaningful give you plenty of painful emotions, as well as some very pleasant ones. And the third big myth that feeds into the other two is the idea if you're not happy, you're defective. More and more, human nature is being pathologized as science. There's something wrong with you and you need some medication to fix it. The reality is that if you're not happy, you're normal. Life is difficult. You know, I ask my public workshops, is there anybody here who thinks life is too easy, that needs some more difficulty in their life? Anybody in this room that needs some more pain and suffering? You know, life is hard and challenging. Not always, but a lot of the time it is.
Okay, so here we go. So happiness and aging. So talking about some of the things that impact us, why we aren't doing the things that make us happy. And
Yeah,
these are just a few factors. And yes,
oh, I just was going to mention the chat. We have family makes them happy. Someone also put, Monica put, we sometimes self-sabotage our own happiness. Interesting.
okay, we're going to go into a little bit about that, of what we have control of, what we don't, and what we think we don't have control of, but we do, and maybe kind of looking at that and gaining control again. So some factors impacting happiness. There are probably more than this. Experiencing tragedy and heartbreak, that is at any age. But if we are an older adult and we live longer, we've experienced more because we've been here longer. So we may have experienced more tragedy and heartbreak maybe than someone who's younger. Not always, but maybe financial hardships, development of health problems as we age. So those are things that could impact happiness, and sort of maybe we might exacerbate things because we're so focused on it and we feel like we can't do things. So that kind of decreases our happiness. But we're going to talk about factors that promote happiness as well as we get older. So again, we've been on this earth longer, we have more experiences, and that can make us much wiser. People's opinions may not easily fluster us as when we were younger, feeling more comfortable in our own skin, more freedom to do all the things that we want to do. So this can go with if you're retired, you don't have to be bound to a job or listen to a boss. You can kind of go at your own time. If you want to sleep late, if you want to get up early, if you want to kind of leave your dish in the sink, something like that. And those are very little things, and those things make me happy. We have a stronger ability to self-regulate as we age. So the ability, if we're upset, to calm ourselves down. And to also, if there are things that are a positive, also to maybe, again, pursue those things, what we're talking about today, our actions, what is going to help us to feel better. Okay, so I found this quote when I was researching this, and this is going back to when we were 8 months into COVID. And I think this is, it's very relevant. This is an actor, not an older actor, but I think probably in his, I guess, 50s. So he says during the pandemic, he found himself like a lot of people, going back to what feels comfortable and knowable. Because much of our existence at that time in the last 8 months, and even now, has been uncomfortable and unknowable. And what I thought was significant about that, again, is, we may have things that really made us happy, that helped us through tough times, but with COVID, that's kind of all we were fed. So that could really cover up the things that we can utilize to really help ourselves get out of it and forget, well, something was older, I used it a long time ago, and we forget about it. So this kind of reminded me, and I thought it was, again, significant to put in here. Well, go back to what made you comfortable. Go back to and utilize those things that made you feel familiar, because, still we're experiencing things that we haven't experienced before. So I think it's okay to go back to something that makes you feel comfortable, that makes you feel happy, because that's going to help maybe, move those clouds away and really see what the pandemic and other things that have happened over the year have covered up. So what he did is he spent his downtime consuming comedies from the 70s and 80s. So we're going back. I mean, for me anyway, that's going back from the 70s and 80s that he remembered from his youth. So something as simple as that can help you feel better. And I also think, and what I've heard throughout this year, friends and experiences with staff, with their clients, that people sort of feel guilty. if they kind of just sit there and do something that they enjoy, they like. So I think it's important to recognize that, you're worth it. You're worth to do the things that make you happy. Look at what you value and do those things, help that motivate you to do the things that you want to do the things that you like to do, not to be pulled down from those things, but thinking of these things that help you to bring you up. Okay, so some happiness tips, things that we can do to maybe lift our spirits a little bit if there are things that are clouding us too much. So these are maybe some things to think about and might be helpful to you. The first one is get to the root, and I really like this one, and to me, it was personal to me. Start looking for explanation as to why you're feeling a certain way. So kind of like what the video said, we're not going to be happy all the time, but we also want to be careful of if we're down, how far down are we? How long are we there? And a few weeks ago, I took a grief seminar, and the facilitator said that there's grief that we're going through. We may not even know that we're going through grief. So some people will, like, I just can't get happy. I'm in a bad mood. I'm sad and I just don't know why. And then he said, well, there's grief that's going on. We may not even be aware of it. Look, a lot of things were removed from our lives. A lot of you had said in one of the poll that we had asked about, why aren't you doing the things that you like to do? Things aren't accessible. Friends aren't accessible. They took away maybe the feeling of feeling safe going outside. That was taken away from us. Running an errand, going to the store, even going to a doctor, we put that on pause. So a lot of things were taken away from us. So grief isn't just grieving a death. A lot of us were affected in that way directly, but then we're also affected indirectly by those other things that were removed from our lives. So if you are feeling, well, you know what, there's nothing to be happy about with all of this going on, maybe looking at the root of it. And I'm not going to talk about grief, but that's just something to think about. Well, maybe I am grieving, and we might not be aware of that. And if we are aware of that, that can maybe provide us with a little bit of relief. When I also think about, getting to the root, like a tree or a plant, what happens is the root is the life of the plant, the life of the tree, but it may go unnoticed. We may not see it. We may forget about it because it's not in our visibility. So if we don't water that plant or say resoil that, resoil the plants, or say water the tree, what's going to happen? It may dry up. It may start to wither. The leaves may fall off. So I think that's also parallel to what we do to ourselves in our thinking. So we may want to recognize, or look for, what's happening, and it may be looking inward. We may, well, you know what, this is what's bothering me. And then we can start to address it and then start to bloom again. Because if we don't water that tree or change that soil, it's not going to be as vibrant. And I think that also happens with ourselves, feeding ourselves the good stuff so that we can feel high spirited again and vibrant. Also, being real. That's another thing I think is important. To don't put pressure on yourself. If you think back to the video, Dr. Harris had said, if we're holding on to happiness too tight, that could cause us to make ourselves miserable. So if we're not feeling good one day, go with it. Sometimes if I'm not in a good mood, if I can stay, in a room alone and no one comes in to ask me how I'm doing, that makes me happy because I'm able to stay where I am. I'm able to feel what I'm feeling without kind of being picked at. And that I'm not feeling well, but I can address it and I choose to stay alone. That may make me happy. But again, you want to be aware of how long you're staying down. So again, don't pretend you're feeling full of sunshine. You're entitled to feel the full range of emotions that you feel. As Dr. Russ Harris said, sadness or anxiety or frustration. And once we maybe allow ourselves to feel that, we'll come out to the other side, to happiness and some sort of sunshine. If you're having trouble, another point is to repeat the "I'll feel better when I," and again, maybe looking at the things that do make you happy and looking back to maybe things that used to be helpful to you, but you haven't used in a long time because it's been covered up by new strategies that you're using, but those old ones might be helpful as well. So it's worth it to kind of think back as well. Taking responsibility. We influence ourselves by choosing what we do. So we have that, that self-talk. We have a thought, we feel a certain way, and then we behave. So we're responsible for feeding ourselves what we feed ourselves. It could be, positive or negative, and we have control over that. Thinking it out. Again, the self-talk, changing how you feel can happen by changing how you think about what's bothering you. And instead of dwelling on what went wrong, identify what you learned, what you can do with the knowledge to make your next moments better. So with this specific thinking out, what could happen is, we could dwell on what's bad, and we may have we may feel that it's well, it just might be that we're feeling bad, so we're piling on more bad stuff. And let's face it, it's easy to do in this environment. This is, it's sort of like a cloud that we're dealing with every day, even if it's indirectly or direct. So, we may be prone to just keep adding on that stuff that we dwell on. Changing the story in your head. I like this one as well. Sometimes when we're in a bad mood, again, it's tempting to cling to a story and just add on, negative things, and that justifies it. And then we retell it to ourselves over and over again, like a picture book that we've heard a million times. But this also says to think about, you're reading a book, you're done with the book, putting that book on the shelf, and say it was a horror book, a Stephen King book that made you feel kind of on edge and, and nervous. Once you're done with that book, you can put that book back, pull out another book, a book that talks about romance, a book that talks about something like gardening or something that's happy. So maybe doing the same thing in your head. You could feel one way one moment, but maybe putting that book back on the shelf and taking out one that's going to make you feel good. Okay. I'm just going to check the time.
We
Okay.
have, it's 2:35.
Okay. All right. So we have
Some
some
time. Yeah.
Okay. Wanting to understand, even if something happened to create a bad mood, as I was just saying previously, we have control over what we do. So we're responsible for maintaining it. It's easy to do that if you refuse to see the other side of situations. Again, this is, we can fuel the anger. As I said previously, we're prone to maybe adding on things that don't make us feel good. So maybe looking at, feeling the compassion. Uplifting yourself to diffuse the negative thoughts, generate positive ones. Watch something funny and silly on TV, listen to something that's funny, watch something inspirational that reminds you that people are good and life is good. Going back to the quote of that actor, he decided to watch 70 and 80s sitcoms, and that made him happy. This might be something a little silly, but I think it works. I've tried it when I've had arguments with my significant other, looking at him like he was talking in a cartoon voice, and it made me laugh, and that kind of diffused the situation. So like Dr. Russ Harris says, swapping the voice in your head with the cartoon voice, that could help you take the power back from the troubling thought that's happening. Rehashing a fight with someone, doing it as a cartoon character with a high-pitched voice. It's funny. It sounds ridiculous, but again, that's the point. Going back to the beginning when I said talking about happiness, and some friends said, "Oh, you're brave. Why are you talking about this?" That's exactly the point. Okay, and sometimes our minds could be very stubborn. we might be dealing with not one or two things that are troubling, maybe 3, 4, or 5. So that can cause our minds to be stubborn and kind of continue to, move toward the negative. So if your mind is still being stubborn, it's kind of, you're kind of battling with yourself. So the part of you that wants to let go against the part of you that doesn't. So maybe repeat this to yourself. I still feel bad. This is how I'm feeling for the moment. Accept that's how you feel. And maybe that's how you need to feel for the moment. Accept it, and that you won't always feel bad, and it'll change as soon as you're ready. But again, I always like to emphasize that to always look for how long you're there. So it's important to, again, to nurture yourself, nurture the sadness or the frustration you're going through, and being okay with being there, because we have those emotions and feeling the full range, but also to monitor and check that you're not there for too long. Simply affirming that you won't always feel bad, that you're not destined to feel angry, sad, or frustrated forever, and that you are in control of your own feelings, and that could help to let them go.
So Anne-Marie, this reminds me of that fun little fact. How many positive thoughts does it take to counteract a negative thought? And you guys, go ahead and put it in the chat. Is it 1 in 10? I mean, what do you think? How many, positive thoughts do you need to counteract one negative thought? So could be 2, could be 5. I don't know. But we're gonna see.
It could be 1 and 1 positive and 1 negative cancels it out. I don't know.
Wouldn't that be nice? The power of positive. Oh, we got a response. Olga Rosario says 3, 5 positive thoughts. I guess 3 to 5 positive thoughts we'll take. Monica says 6. One big one from Barbara Levitt. Excellent. I love this.
I like that enthusiasm.
I do too. That's right. The power of positivity. So Anne-Marie, what's the answer?
Okay, so negative has 3 times the impact of a positive. Therefore, we need 4 positives to counteract 1 negative. So we were around that range from what the audience has said. So yeah, so the negative is very positive. And another thought I'll bring in, and this has also been researched, that our minds have a negative bias, and I'm not going to go into it too much, but the reason for that is because it helps us stay away from danger. So this was, this is something that's evolved. This was back from hunter-gatherers days, from when they were in the jungle. They were hunting for their food. They had to be careful of wild animals. They had to be aware of if they were eating wild berries that were poisonous. So this was from way, way back. So we have this negative bias that helps to keep us out of danger. But there are positives, but we need to have a lot more positives than negatives to bring us out of that negative bias. Okay, so this is just a measure. I'm not sure if there's many people on the phone, but it's a measure of from 1 to 5. 1 where we're just kind of we have a face there that has a frown and their tongue is sticking out. The second one is still frowning. Third is kind of getting to feeling okay, but still not so happy. Number 4 is feeling better and feeling good. And number 5 is feeling best with the smile. So I felt that it was significant to have this here to, again, give ourselves the permission, value ourselves, and don't put pressure on ourselves. And if I'm feeling at a 1 today, I'm feeling at a 1 and I'm going to go with it. That can kind of maybe help us feel liberated and free. I feel at 1 today, and that's where I'm going to stay. And I need to nurture myself by not speaking to anyone or staying in, maybe going under the covers. And then again, it fluctuates. So happiness, we're not going to have that intense joy every minute of our lives, but we do have families, we have friends, we have other things in our lives that overall make us happy, but we may not have that intense joy at that moment. So it's also important to to recognize this is going to go in waves. You know, 1 and 2, 3 and 4, you may be 4 or 5 for a long time, and then something may happen, you might go to a 3. But maybe looking at these tips might help you not to go to that number 1. But if you do, it's okay. But again, not staying there for too long. That's key. Okay, so we have some quotes here. Happiness is when what you think, what you say, and what you do are in harmony.
Nice.
Okay, so we have 4 stages of happiness by Gretchen Rubin. Anticipate, look forward to something. The way we can do that is put something on our calendar, because it holds ourselves accountable. We can say, oh, I'm going to do this, you know, I'm going to go for a walk, and you don't do it. Put it on your calendar, put the time on it, or also maybe if you have a group of friends maybe that you're talking to on the phone. I don't know if many people are seeing people face to face yet, or maybe on a Zoom, that, okay, well, this is something that I'm going to do. I'm actually doing this with my staff. We have a check-in on Fridays. So as we were talking, we kind of thought about, well, why don't we talk about something that we've been wanting to do and we haven't been doing, and we're procrastinating. So everybody talked about the one thing that they've wanted to do and they haven't. So we said, okay, put that on your calendar. When we come back next week, we're going to talk about it. So that's something that can hold you accountable to do it. And lo and behold, we all did the thing that we said we were going to do. Myself, I did it. I think I said I was going to take a break and walk 3 times. So I did it twice. I didn't do the 3, but that's not a failure. I still held to it, and I held myself accountable. I still did part of it. So that's also another thing to look at, as if we have a goal. If we don't do the whole thing, that's okay. You know, did we do something to get closer to it? So that's something to look at as well. Savoring the moment as it unfolds. You know, we might be so distracted, and I'll bring the pandemic, that distracted of what's going on with the pandemic. And we might not be really looking at or enjoying what's happening for us. So, you know, look at the little things that are happening. What's making a day special. Take in the quality of something. Again, even going back to the quote, even if you watch an old show that makes you laugh, you know, what's the quality in that? You know, what's happening? We want to slow ourselves down, pay close attention to what's happening.
Yeah, so add to that, be in the moment, right? You were saying, like, be in the moment. So if you have a time when you can exercise to help with your mood, be in that moment, right? It's
Expressing your happiness. That's and helping someone else express happiness. A lot of research has shown if we're helping others and they express happiness to us, and it shows that we're helping them, that helps us to feel happy. So, you know, express happiness, and that could be contagious and fall onto other people. Recalling a happy memory. These things are very simple things, but again, we have to remember a lot of these simple things are covered up by the not so good stuff that's been happening. So looking at these little things could really start help us opening up to the good stuff and more happy moments. Okay. So I like this quote. This is so that older adults, as we all age, cherish all your happy moments. They make a fine cushion for old age. Okay. Okay, just checking the time. So here's some 6 keys to happiness for the older adults. Focus on our abilities. Now, the older adults who focus on what they can do and find rewarding rather than any decline in abilities. Because as we know, as we age, there may be more physical ailments that are happening. And if that is something that's happening, we may be so focused on, well, I can't do this. And we're kind of sort of like the root in the tree. We don't see it and we're avoiding it, or it sort of disappears, but it's still there. What are the things that I can do? And I just wanted to make an example of an event I went to on Tuesday where they had a yoga instructor, and there were some people that had walkers, some people that had canes, and some people that didn't. She had them do some yoga, but holding on to a chair. So you had people that had walkers and canes, and she had them balancing. So she had said, put one foot in front of you, one foot behind you. That might not seem like a big deal, but that's actually balancing. So I felt that that was very significant, because there's some people that have canes, they may have arthritis, they may be using walkers and say, oh, I can't do that. Maybe you could, it just might have to be modified and adjusted. So I think it's worth to really look at what are the things that you can do, because if we're so focused on the things we can't do, we're not going to do the things that we could do, because we're ignoring it. So that might be something to look at. Staying socially connected. I know this has been a difficult time during the pandemic, but for all of you here, today is something that we're doing to stay connected. We're on a Zoom chat. I don't see you, but you see me, but I see Susan, so I feel connected. Just being actively engaged in life, whatever that might be for you. Accentuate the positive, volunteering to feel good. Each day could be a learning experience, learning each day. Hopefully you learned something today from the presentation we're providing to you. Okay, so happiness and you. Again, looking at the things that we have that are there, but we just don't see them because of all of the other kind of crummy stuff that's happening or that has happened. You know,
Anne-Marie, we have a question.
Mhm.
Do you want to take it at the end, or do you want to take it now?
Well, what do you think? Does it tie into?
Why don't we take it out?
discussion
We
at
can
this
do it at the
point?
end, but
Okay.
I think it will relate to a lot of us.
Okay. Okay. So what are your strengths? Again, that might be something that may have been feel like was taken away from us in the wake of this pandemic. A lot of things were taken away, so we may think that strengths were taken away, and myself included. Some days I have to think and concentrate more than others to recognize the things that I do have within. So selecting one of your highest strengths, no matter, what it is. Something that is the core of you, something that is you. Who you are, that's easy for you to do, easy for you to use, something that gives you energy. And then consider a new way to express this. And I think if this has happened for most, if not all, that as bad as the pandemic has been, it was a way to create. Me being on here now was a creation for me, and navigating this Zoom thing. So I did have a strength, I think, of talking with people and doing face-to-face presentations. I never did Zoom, so I'm expressing it and doing it in a different way. It was very scary, but here I am. And I'm doing it, whether it's good or not. It did help me take my strength into a different direction. So again, it could be something that's very simple. So expressing that strength in a different way. For many of us, it could be helping other people, helping our neighbor. If maybe we're more mobile than a neighbor, maybe we helped by going to the store for the neighbor, something like that. So something you might think is very little, but it could be very significant and very valuable to someone else. Okay, a little exercise here. Write down 3 funny things you experienced in a given day and why those things happen. So again, instead of being covered by, the negative and maybe watching the news consistently, try to pick out something funny that happened, write those things down. It might be something that you were directly involved in. It might be something that you saw. It might be something that someone said to you. So again, we can look at different things and pick out those things. And again, try to open up those clouds to get some sunshine in.
I love that idea. You know, sometimes what you think is not funny in the moment becomes funny later, right?
Yeah, that's, I stubbed my toe. That didn't make me happy, but it was funny and I laughed at it.
Right. Right. The other
Okay.
day, my desk, I knocked over a leg on my desk and my entire desk slid over and I was catching it. And thank God my husband was home because he could help me catch it because I couldn't really do it myself. And of course, in the moment, you're frustrated. You're like, this is going to ruin my work day, blah, blah, blah. But then when you retell the story, I was telling to somebody at work and they start laughing and I start laughing. She's like, of course that happens. You know, why would we all have perfect days?
That's right.
And we could laugh at it.
Okay, and I like this quote a lot. Let us never know what old age is. Let us know the happiness time brings and not count the years.
Awesome.
Okay. And this is just a basic reminder of color. So I guess I'll ask the question, what is your favorite color if you'd like to
Share it in the chat.
share it in the chat?
Okay. Oh, we have a comment, Arthur Fitting saying, you are saying things we need to hear out loud. Being able to accept a new normal helps a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's really nice. Oh, we got some favorite colors. Purple by far from Magda. Ooh, Barbara Levitt, fuchsia. Yeah, I'm kind of into that one myself. Green, yes. Cynthia J, thank you. Hot pink from Tara Noto. Awesome.
So again, this is just a reminder of something. If you're in say if you're home all day, there's a certain place you stay all day, like like me in my office, I have some, my favorite, one of my favorite colors, I have something hanging. Spruce up your mood. Again, something very simple, but these are reminders. And I think we need to be reminded because of a lot of the bad stuff that we're reminded of too. So again, this brings us to the other side of it.
Yeah, these little things that make us happy. Joan and Sharon say orange. All right. Monica loves all colors. Just even see, I don't know if you can see this, if I can put this up. I have this on my desk. It's a little floating fish thing. And sometimes it just makes me happy to look at it and think that, you know what? There are other things out there in the world. This is a moment. This moment will pass. So it is 2:55.
Oh, okay.
So, and we do have a question.
Okay.
And do you want to do that? There we go. The last slide.
Oh, no, that's not it. So I'll go back. My apologies. Yeah, so this I thought was a great slide to end with. Every day may not be good, but there's something good in every day.
Excellent. So this is I think a question that in an issue that a lot of us will understand and have been in, talks about relationships. The person mentions like when they feel that what keeps them from being happiness is when they get stressed. They tend to get triggered and they find themselves getting angry and slipping back into old patterns and habits of behavior that they intellectually know they don't want and aren't good for them or anyone else. But at the same time, they're sort of like defense mechanisms, like possibly passive aggressive behavior, stonewalling. So they're really asking, how do we get out of that funk and start taking the steps toward having those difficult conversations, getting down to like what you mentioned in an earlier slide, Marie, like getting to the root of it, right? That most important, getting to the root of it. And then also, how do we prevent stress from triggering these patterns to begin with? And how do we create new neural pathways for healthier patterns? big question. And you mentioned also, I think with this, what we'll bring up is practice, practice, practice.
Right. So some of these, if we've been in something for a long time, things aren't going to happen overnight. So going back to some of the tips, starting small, what is it that you think, looking at, well, what is the biggest issue that's, because we may have, there's a lot of issues within that question. So, really picking out of that specific, that one problem, what is it that's really bothering me, and really trying to specify what that problem is and what you want to do about it. How could I go about this? What tools do I have to do it? And starting out slow. And that, again, that could be anything for any individual person. What is it that I can do to start out slowly? And as Susan said, practice, practice, practice. And if we're unable to do those things, say, on our own, maybe it's good to maybe have someone to speak to, maybe a counselor, and maybe a friend, maybe a coach. Sometimes we can utilize self-help, but if we have issues maybe that are deep rooted and we've tried a lot of things, you maybe want to look at, well, what have I tried? And if this didn't work, what other things could I, or possibly out there that I could try? And that could be talking to people, getting suggestions on how you can do that. Because yes, it's tough when you're kind of in this kind of
Spiral,
circle.
right? The never ending spiral.
Right. And it's hard to get out of, and sometimes we can't do it on our own. So maybe, again, starting little by little, what is the thing that's really bothering me out of what I just said? Is it the relationship? Is it, how I respond to it? Is it, am I feeling badly because of? So which issue in that, where can you start from? So start small and breaking it down into smaller pieces. But again, it's some things don't happen overnight, and it's going to take practice,
right,
to be consistent and continuing to practice those things that are going to make you feel good. And
it
it may
started
take
the first step. They started the first step. They want to make the change. Step number one, you want to change. You don't want to feel this way. Or that is step number one, right?
Right. And maybe some self-talk, some questions. What is it that I want to change? What is it that is bothering me? How is this affecting me? And then you can kind of, that can kind of open up where you can start from.
So we have some other ideas. People think about, when Betsy said, my mother would always say, get over yourself and get on with it. Like, we want to move forward, right? So stop ruminating about the unhappy things. And it's hard. Our brain likes to ruminate about unhappy things, is what, part of what was in this presentation. So we have to be mindful and concrete about getting ourselves out of that and into a place where we can be happy and we can solve what we want to solve by looking at it and changing our perspective, right? So, and they've also put gratitude, find happiness in the simple things. But the person who wrote the question, the question was step number one towards change, right? And then finding out what is the root of what you want to change. And like Anne-Marie, these are things only you can answer, and you might not be at a stage where you could do it yourself. You might want to reach out.
Yeah, so going back to some of those tips that we talked about, and as Susan said, we may find that we might need some help, and here we are right here. How to get help. This is a non-emergency help. We have our VNS-NY Geriatric Outreach Program, which can provide support and helping you maybe to find the thing that could help you, resources in the community. We have our program, Encouraging Active Rewarding Lives, and that is helping individuals with depression. So sort of what I was saying about looking at the problem, how do you want to solve it, and looking at different solutions and what can be realistic for you in addressing that problem to get to your goal so that you can feel some relief. So that's problem solving treatment that we do within the Pearls program. And we have our information here. And I just wanted to scroll down to, and here we go. We have some pictures here, people together. We have some people alone that are happy walking around. And, just remember that there are things that aren't so happy that we're being fed, but there's also other things that are happy that it might be just covered. So what are the things we can do to uncover that, and to know that there are good things out there? There are those good things. We may have to sometimes work a little bit harder to get to it, unfortunately, but putting the work in, I think, is key, and there's a lot of value to that.
Now 3:02.
Okay, all right. So just wanted to again talk about VNS and why we have other departments other than us, our community mental health services. We've been around for a long time, and we provide help to all populations, all ages in the community that may need some support. So
Over 126 years of service in New York City. The experts are here at Visiting Nurse Service of New York, and we are here to help.
So thank you today for taking the time to be with us. I hope this was helpful to you. And again, don't worry, be happy. That was the song I heard today. So to be a little corny, but hopefully you can utilize some of the things that you heard today. And again, I thank you so much for spending your valuable time to be with us today.
I'm typing an answer to that last question. So thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. I had a last poll. If you're still here, I can.
Even that person, you can also call it at the number that we put up, and reach out if you feel like you need some help. You can always call, and everything is confidential, of course.
Oops, my little polls are giving me a trouble. Okay, we got a few things in the chat. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for the insights. Thank you, guys. Thank you for participating, because we can't do it just by ourselves. We need you. And we did have people who responded to the last poll saying, yes, they felt this presentation had meaning for them. So thank you so much to everybody. We appreciate it, and have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you. Bye.